For the first time in a few years, we're getting Steve Curry versus LeBron James in a best-of-7 series, and I cannot wait. Before we even start talking about that, I want to get my flowers to the Sacramento Kings, man. One hell of a season to go from a team that was not expected to do anything to not just make the playoffs, but be the 3 seed and take to defend the champions to 7 is something you tip your hat off. Of course, you want to win Game 7 at home and everything, but I think we can look back on the season and say this was an absolute success by every single metric to get rid of the drought, to like the bean, to have the interests of the monster bonus. Both get all-B consideration. We don't know if both of them are going to make it or one of them is going to make it just to have playoff basketball back in Sacramento is great. And we saw it in this series how they pack out the house every single night. So one hell of a season and one hell of a series. Man, this was the most fun series in the first round. And that's something because we got a lot of crazy stuff in the first round. This one was peak. Obviously, Steve Curry is the of the series, but that's kind of given, right? Kevin Looney, absolute masterclass of will and effort. I want to remind everybody that going into the playoffs, the Sacramento Kings are one of the teams that allowed the least amount of offensive rebounds in basketball. I think they were like number 7 in the lowest given up. You know what I'm trying to say? They were in the bottom third of the league, and they allowed offensive rebounds. And in this Game 7, win or go home. Kevin Looney in that third quarter was Moses Malone. He was Dennis Rodman. He was Wilt Chamberlain. He was Andre Drummond. Yep, I said Andre Drummond. Go look at Andre Drummond. Offensive rebound and stats from when he was in his prime. Absolutely. He got one of the highest offensive rebound rates in the history of basketball. I know now he's a backup and been on 20 different teams, but prime Drummond was like that, and Kevin Looney matched that in some. And then it got so bad that it wasn't just Kevin Looney. When the third quarter, if the last time I heard him talk about it, it was like 13 offensive rebounds in that quarter alone. And this game will be a lot worse as far as stats go. If the worst is capitalizing the free throws because they shot terribly from the free throw line, at least until the last couple of minutes because, it's over. They put the starters. 50 of them things. Steph Curry. 50 of them things. Crazy, bro. And you can just feel all of the air gets sucked out of the arena after the third offensive rebound where Wiggins goes in and try to tip, dunk, and note that Steve Curry get it. Then he dribble all around to get in for a layup. This man, Steph Curry, saw 2 people all Game 7 and did not matter. He would dribble around you or he was shooting over you. And he got a 50, man. And this is huge. And obviously the win matters. But like going into the playoffs, one of the things I personally was most skeptical about was their ability to play on the road. I mean, they showed us all season long that they struggled there, right? And we gave them benefit of the doubt because it's out-defend the champions. But all the numbers say that, hey man, this team have not business being the conversations as a contender. They won 2 games on the road. And one of the loudest home court advantages there is. Now they're going into Staples. And yes, we're saying Staples. Deal. And I don't know what the vibe is going to be like, but they packed out the house too. We talk about the almighty Lakers, right? So they have to do a very similar thing. But now they have home court up. They just got to take care of business at the Chase. So I'm just all around excited about the way this first round ended up being, as a neutral fan and excited about these matchups around 2. Again, Curry versus Bron, they haven't. In some years, man, it ain't happened in some years. I mean, you can make the legitimate argument that Kevin Looney was the best big in the series, and that's a series that had Draymond Green and Domantas Sabonis. I don't know if I'm being hyperbolic, but that's as far as impact goes. That's what it felt like because Domantas Sabonis struggled mightily this entire series. I mean, this game, I think the count is that say he had a efficient good game. But if you watch this game, you saw the amount of offensive rebounds that were given up where he's supposed to be that gobbler of the rebounds. He's one of the best rebounders in basketball this season. And then the way they played him defensively, all series long, where they allowed him to take as many mid-range jumps as he wanted. And a couple of those he hit, but they didn't allow him to bang. And he's a bruiser, and Draymond Green and Kevin Looney took that right at the chest every single time. And it was a lot different than what Domantas Sabonis had saw all season long. And now this next series is going to be a little bit different because Anthony Davis might be the opposite of Domantas Sabonis when it comes to physicality, physicality, where he's more of a finesse, big. So how does Steve Kerr and the guys figure out how to guard Anthony Davis? Like, I'm excited about the exit of the nose. Darvin Ham versus Steve Kerr. I think I have an idea. Who has the advantage on the coaching tip? But I honestly do believe having this home court advantage could be one of the determinative factors to who's going to win the series between the Warriors and the Lakers. And I think that Wiggins was going to come back and look as good as he did. And I know he has some games, or probably the entire series. His shooting splits might not have looked as good, but on the defensive side of the ball, he was still there completely. And the same thing where Gary Payton II, where when they needed somebody to hound, it was him. If Malik Monk was on a little burner, I could go throw Gary Payton in just for a couple minutes and let him slow that down. Or Dom Fox, slow that down. So these dudes that hadn't played for the past, I don't know. Monk just come in and immediately making a positive impact. Looney ended up with 21 rebounds. That is 21 rebounds. And 10 of those were offensive. I always like Game 7s because this is where coaches try to throw that little monkey wrench in where it's like, okay, we've done similar things for the first 6 games, but they don't have no time to make an adjustment. There's no Game 8. And what we saw from Steve Kerr is he allowed Moses Moody to be the first guard off the bench. That was a problem. I mean, we had seen a lot of Jordan Poole and a lot of not. Even Chenzo throughout the series. It was Moses Moody. Like, wow. And he gave them some impactful. Decent man as he defended. Well, I think he had a shot he just hit another one on my screen and garbage but I think he had a shot when it mattered. So overall, I think Steve Kerr coached a good series. And one thing that I said I was afraid of is that, like, as long as Steph Curry had been on the court through the first 6 games, the Warriors have won those minutes by, I think it's 30-something. So just keep Steve Curry on the floor. In the Game 7, there might not be a tomorrow. So we're going to keep Steve Curry on the floor as long as we wanted to. And they did. He played almost 40 minutes, and he probably would. I've got over 40 if he won the 20-point blowout. It's hard to believe that this man is 35 years old. You know, for some reason in my mind, he's still 30 years something. He's 35 and he's still at the peak of his powers. He's still in his prime. Y'all, at 35 years old, he just said, what if his best performance is he's 35? This is not normal. I mean, it might end up being the norm as we continue to advance with medicine and all of this stuff. But like we normally do not see a 35-year-old smaller because he's still 6'2", 6'3", whatever, smaller point guards, have this type of longevity. And I don't mean just being good. I mean being great. I mean being the best in his position. I mean being one of the best in the entire world. And that's what he is. And we see that on display all series long because this wasn't just Game 7 where he'd been turning up. He's been doing it the entire series. He has an offense in himself. And as long as he's on the court, you can kind of count on your team winning those minutes. And it's not a lot of people in NBA history that you could say that about again. The Kings gave a great series, man. I'm proud of those dudes. Obviously, it's going to be a ton of emotion there. They're going through it with this loss, but they gave us a good series. And the Matzo, Bonus been playing with a broken hand for 6 months. Deer Fox been dealing with his broken finger. Like, I'm not doing excuses. But I'm just saying, like, they went through a lot of not turmoil, but like adversity to even get to this point. And they came and showed out. Just gave slip through the cracks. Get a rebound, bro. That third quarter was all the momentum swing because it was a really close game. Until that point where you talk about 13 offensive boards at one court. You know how many extra shots that is it? In a lot of cases, at least 13. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of extra attempts to score the ball, especially if Steve Curry's on the opposing team. So I don't know how to feel exactly about the series. I got to go in a little bit deeper than just the surface value. But I mean, I'm so very excited to see Steph Curry versus LeBron James. Again, I think both teams could win the series off. I don't know who I would predict to win, but we'll get to that eventually. I just want to remind you to enjoy the game, bro.